Mr. President, Libya would like to thank Spain and the core group for presenting this draft resolution in this timely manner. Ladies and gentlemen, the world stands yet again to be tested in a moment of truth, as it is being on the edge of moral collapse. A nation buried beneath rubble and ash. For over 600 days, Gaza has been subjected to a brutal onslaught, a genocide broadcast in real time, yet unanswered by the consciousness of humanity. Over 55,000 souls extinguished, 125,000 wounded, and generations scarred beyond recognition. Wounds that will never heal. If I would name the names of all of those, I would need days to do so. If I would have bring pictures of those, this chamber will not be enough to show them. This is not collateral damage. This is not a tragedy of war. This is a deliberate act of ethnic cleansing and calculated dismantling of a nation. These are the words of officials from the occupied Israeli forces, who many have been sanctioned by countries in this world. The bombs do not discriminate. Tents, hospitals, homes, aid convoys, nothing is spared. Children buried beneath rubble, entire families burned alive and vaporized, some with not a single survivor to carry their names forward. Talking about stories, a mother, Dr. Ala al-Najjar, you all know her story, returns from saving lives at a hospital to find her own 9 children and husband massacred. Her story is not an exception. This became the norm, and the list goes on. This is not a war. It is an annihilation in daylight, a genocide emboldened by political shields and the deadly comfort of inaction. The international community watches paralyzed as a veto in the Security Council strangles justice. Gaza is now a wasteland and a mass grave for children. Its people displaced from north to south and back again with nowhere safe to go. Starvation is not a byproduct. It is a weapon of war. Food and water are withheld, malnutrition is weaponized against newborns, and aid is turned into bait in a concentration camp where fathers are executed for chasing a bag of flour to go back to their hungry children. And still, no accountability and no justice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment of moral reckoning, and silence is complicity. Humanity is bleeding in Gaza, and the world must choose to uphold the law, dignity, and life, or to betray them all. It is time. It is time to break the silence. It is time to end the siege. Time to stop this madness, and time to stand with Palestine. History did not start on October the 7th. This is a struggle of 7 decades and still ongoing. Libya asks you to vote in favor of this resolution to help end this vicious cycle. Those pressing on the red button today to vote against this resolution will become a bloodstain on their fingers. This is going to be registered on this voting table in front of you, and it will be a testimony of your moral compass and double standards. This is not only a Palestinian tragedy, it is a global moral emergency to stop this 21st century genocide. All lives matters. All innocent lives matter, no matter which part you're from. So will you be on the right side of history, or will you let Gaza be your generation's shame for eternity? The choice is yours. Thank you, Mr. President.
I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States.
Thank you, President Yang. Today's emergency special session marks yet another failure on the part of the United Nations to condemn Hamas. We remain incensed that just yesterday, Hamas murdered 5 Palestinian civilians working to distribute aid for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The resolution being considered does nothing to free the hostages, improve the lives of civilians in Gaza, or bring us closer to a ceasefire, and is yet another performative action that erodes the credibility of this body. This draft resolution sends an unacceptable message to Hamas and other Iran-backed terrorist proxies. And that message is, you will be rewarded for taking hostages, diverting aid, and launching attacks from civilian areas. Mr. President, colleagues, blind support to Hamas by the members of this body further undermines the meaningful diplomacy underway to free the hostages and emboldens Hamas as the terrorist group continues to reject ceasefire proposals accepted by Israel. As the United States has made clear time and time again, we do not support one-sided measures that fail to condemn Hamas. We will not support resolutions that do not call for violent terrorist groups to disarm and leave Gaza and fail to recognize Israel's right to defend itself. It would be a better use of time for this body to support the diplomatic efforts currently underway to free the remaining 53 hostages, many of whom are nationals of member states of this body, and remain in deplorable conditions for the last 615 days. Instead, the UN is wasting valuable time, energy, and resources on yet another biased resolution that rewards Hamas. Let us be clear. This resolution does nothing to bring calm to Gaza. It also does nothing to advance a realistic diplomatic solution to further the cause of peace. It is rife with serious defects. This resolution fails to acknowledge Israel has the right to defend itself. As we have made clear, any measure that undercuts our allies' security is a non-starter for the United States. This resolution draws false equivalence between Israel and Hamas, which is not only morally reprehensible, but also naive and dangerous. This resolution seeks an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire that would leave Hamas in a position to carry out future October 7th attacks. Mr. President, no one wants to see Palestinian civilians in Gaza go hungry or thirsty. Yet this resolution fails to acknowledge the shortcomings of the prior method of aid delivery, which allowed Hamas to enrich itself at the expense of the Palestinian civilians it purports to represent. We reiterate our call for the UN, NGOs, and partners to support the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to help it safely deliver aid without allowing Hamas to pilfer those resources. Hamas continues to weaponize the suffering of civilians in Gaza, murdering Palestinians as they did just yesterday and injuring many others in another desperate bid to obstruct the delivery of aid and maintain control. This resolution falsely accuses Israel of the use of starvation as a method of warfare, while at the same time ignoring Gaza Humanitarian Foundation efforts to cut out Hamas and deliver aid consistent with the humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. This resolution callously demands that Israel end its blockade on Gaza while conveniently ignoring the fact that Hamas, which committed the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust and abducted 251 people on October 7, 2023, continues to pose an active threat to Israeli civilians and to brutally suppress protests against its own despotic rule. It also fails to recognize the extensive measures undertaken by Israel to mitigate harm to civilians in Gaza, even as Hamas continues to use non-combatants as human shields. Mr. President, the United States will support a future for the people in Gaza that is free of Hamas and full of opportunity. We will do our part to help forge this new reality alongside Israel and our Arab partners. A durable peace between Israelis and Palestinians and a more prosperous future for all of the region's people will only be possible through direct negotiations between the parties and not unilaterally imposed from afar. We urge fellow members to call out Hamas for what is the biggest impediment toward a life of prosperity for the people living in Gaza. We urge members to vote against this biased resolution, which will further inflame tensions at a time when negotiators are continuing their efforts to secure a durable ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you.
This is Adaka Africa, bringing you the latest.
Tell us what you think in the comment. Like and share to friends and family. See you in the next video.